Welcome to Crushed Husband. Please like the video and subscribe. Let's begin. I ended the call and stared at the hotel room ceiling, letting the silence settle. $8.5 million, clean as a whistle, thanks to 64 games, a dozen fake names, and 3 unofficial champions who'd never touched a board. I smiled to myself. Another flawless run. No one outside my circle would ever connect the dots between the trophies, the betting slips, and the accounts I controlled. To the chess world's elite underground, I was a legend. The man who could turn a pawn into a fortune and vanish before the ink dried on the prize slips. To everyone else, I was Calvin Mercer, a middle-aged chess coach who scraped by, teaching kids at community centers and substitute lessons at private schools. On paper, my income barely covered rent and groceries. In reality, I was moving money across Europe and Asia through prize pools, ghost players, and friendly exhibitions that were anything but. A knock at the door pulled me out of my thoughts. Room service, the cover I use for certain drop-offs. I opened it to find a young bellhop with a silver tray and the small envelope tucked under the cloche. No words, just a nod. I slid him a tip big enough to make him forget the stop. The envelope went straight into my jacket. I never got involved in clients' personal lives. That was the rule. Move the money, take the cut, disappear. No grand gestures, no sticking around for the mess. That's how you stayed out of prison, and out of graves. Downstairs, the lobby buzzed with tourists. I walked through like I belonged, just another guest killing time before a flight. The Mercedes waiting at the curb was mine, at least until the lease under a shell company expired. I drove out of Prague without looking back, letting the city lights fade in the rear view. Back in the States, my apartment was exactly as I'd left it, clean, unremarkable, the kind of place no investigator would waste time photographing. I tossed my jacket over the couch and checked the kitchen clock. Lila would be home in an hour. My wife believed I was just a chess instructor. She loved that I followed my passion instead of chasing money. She never asked about the strange hours or the overseas trips. I made sure she never had to. The bills were always paid, the vacations booked, the fridge stocked. If she wondered how a low-rent coach could afford weekend getaways in Napa or the occasional diamond bracelet, she kept it to herself. I pulled a binder from the cabinet. Tournament schedules for the next 6 months, both the real and the ones no federation would ever admit existed. Every move was calculated. Every player placed like a piece on my own private board. I was the king, untouchable as long as I never tipped my hand. And that meant 2 things. Never attract the attention of the authorities, and never let Lila see the other side of the game. The lock turned. Her voice floated in from the hall, warm and easy. I shut the binder, slid it back into the cabinet, and smiled. My 2 lives would never touch. Not if I played perfectly. Lila came in, carrying 2 grocery bags, cheeks pink from the cold. "Hey, you're home early," she said, leaning in to kiss me. She still smelled faintly of the vanilla lotion she used every morning. "Wrapped up sooner than I thought," I said, taking the bags. "What's all this?" "Salmon, asparagus, and that bread you like from Harrington's. Thought we could do a proper dinner for once instead of takeout." She slipped off her coat and shook out her hair, dark, glossy, falling past her shoulders. I watched her move around the kitchen, quick and deliberate. 4 years married, and she still had that same energy from when we first met in San Diego. All sharp smiles and quick comebacks. Back then, I'd thought her attention was like sunlight. If it was on you, you were alive. I wasn't wrong. She caught me staring and grinned. "What? Nothing? Just admiring the view." She laughed, tossing the bread on the counter. "You're ridiculous." That was Lila, playful, confident, and entirely comfortable in our little bubble. She'd never once asked where the money came from. Chess sponsorships was all she needed to hear. We had a condo in a good neighborhood. Weekend trips when we felt like it. No debt, no stress. She didn't dig. I didn't volunteer. Perfect. Over dinner, she leaned back in her chair, swirling a glass of wine. "I was thinking we should do another wine country trip soon. Spring, maybe?" "Sure," I said, cutting into the salmon. "Pick a weekend." Most women I'd dated would have wanted details. How we could afford it. What I had planned at work. What this sponsor or that client wanted from me. Lila didn't operate like that. She enjoyed what we had without running an audit on it. That's why she worked, and why I'd never let her glimpse the other side. But lately, something had shifted. 5 weeks ago, she started texting me more during the day. Little jokes, pictures of herself in new outfits, flirty comments. At night, she was more physical, almost like we were dating again. I should have been thrilled, but there was a new distance in her eyes when the conversation slowed. I noticed it again now, the way she looked past me for half a second before smiling. "You okay?" I asked. "Of course," she said lightly, refilling her glass. "Just tired. Long day." I let it go, but a quiet signal clicked in my head. I'd built a life on reading tells, a hand hovering over a pawn too long, a shift in posture before a bluff. And in the last month, Lila had developed a tell of her own. The game on the home board had changed. I didn't push her that night, but the feeling stayed with me, a low hum under the surface. Over the next 2 weeks, her pattern got stranger. More texts during the day, more heat at night. But when I tried to talk, she kept it light or changed the subject. Like she wanted the closeness, but not the connection. It all clicked, or at least started to, at a Saturday garden party in Brookline. The place belonged to one of the local tournament sponsors, a man who thought serving Prosecco under string lights made him cultured. I was halfway through a conversation about opening prep when I heard my name from behind me. "Calvin," said Peter Vance, a grandmaster who never learned the art of discretion. He glanced toward Lila, who was chatting with a group near the rose trellis, then back to me with a smirk. "Didn't realize you and Marcus were still in the same city." I froze for half a second. "Marcus?" "Marcus Rowe," he said like it was obvious. "Your wife's old flame, right? I ran into him at Logan last week. Said he's back for good. War correspondent gig burned him out, I guess." Peter took a sip of his drink. "Funny, I figured you two would have crossed paths by now." I forced a neutral smile. "Haven't seen him." Peter shrugged and drifted off to join another cluster of guests. My eyes went straight to Lila. She was laughing at something one of the women said, but I caught the flicker of her hand to her hair. The same move she used to make when she was 20 and flirting across a chessboard. On the drive home, she filled the air with light chatter about the food, the people, the ridiculous garden statuary. I kept my answers short and my tone even. By the time we pulled into the garage, I'd already decided I wasn't leaving this to guesswork. Upstairs, while she showered, I made a call to Prague. "I need a file on Marcus Rowe," I told Victor, a fixer who owed me more than one favor. "Anything you can get, where he's been, who he's seeing, all of it." He didn't ask why. "Give me 48 hours. It took 36. The encrypted packet hit my inbox while Lila was at yoga. I opened it on my secure machine, scrolling past passport scans and travel records straight to the phone logs. The messages started tame. Old friends catching up, talk about books, politics, the sorry state of modern chess. Then they shifted. Compliments about her smile, late-night wish-you-were-here texts. Then the photos, nothing explicit, but calculated enough to leave no doubt where the conversation was headed. Hers back to him were just as bad. The last thread stopped me cold. "Marcus, let's meet. The rooftop cafe, our spot. Lila, you remember that place? Marcus, every detail, and you in that dress. Lila, maybe I still have it." I shut the file. The hum under the surface was gone. This was a signal, loud and clear. The game had officially started. I sat back from the monitor, hands still on the keyboard. I'd dealt with arms smugglers who'd tried to stiff me, crooked sponsors who'd faked entire tournaments, clients who'd turn on you for half your cut. I'd walked away from all of them without losing sleep. But seeing my wife in those threads with Marcus, that hit like a blade under the ribs. I wasn't stupid enough to react on impulse. I called 3 of my people, men who owed me their freedom, some their lives. The offers came fast. "Want me to plant a tracker? I can have a crew follower. You want him scared? He'll be scared." I shut them all down. Number, not yet. This wasn't some client who'd taken a wrong turn. This was my home board. If I moved wrong, I'd blow the whole position. The messages kept coming. Victor's feed updated twice a day, and I read every word. Marcus was pushing hard. Nostalgia, inside jokes, painting himself as the man who knew her before I existed. Lila wasn't resisting, not in the ways that mattered. Then Victor sent me the hammer. "Marcus, I want to see you, just us." Lila, "Where?" Marcus, "Knight's End Cafe, rooftop." Lila, "That old place?" Marcus, "You in that red dress. You know the one." Lila, "Maybe I'll wear it. For you." I remembered that dress, low cut, silk, slit up the side. She'd worn it to a college formal the year she and Marcus had first dated. She'd kept it tucked in the back of her closet all these years. I'd never seen her in it once since we married. My phone buzzed with another associate. "If you want this guy out of the picture, I've got ways." I said no, I cut in. My voice came out flat, controlled. "I'll handle it." After he hung up, I sat there for a long minute, watching the cursor blink on an empty screen. The next move wasn't about anger. It was about control. She'd agreed to meet him. She'd agreed to wear the dress. That wasn't flirting anymore. That was opening the door. Fine. I'd walk through it first. Knight's End sat on top of a narrow brick building off Tremont, accessed by a cranky elevator and a short flight of stairs lined with black and white photos of grandmasters. Up top, the night air carried espresso and rain. Strings of bulbs hung over a scatter of small tables, each with a board set and clocks waiting. I spotted them in the corner booth near the railing. Lila in the red dress, the slit high, the neckline lower than I'd ever seen it since college. Marcus held her hand across the table like he owned it. He was broader than I remembered from old photos, hair a little longer, the beard trimmed to look effortless. He laughed at something she said and squeezed. She let him. I didn't pause. I walked straight to their table and slid into the empty side of the booth like I'd been invited. Lila's smile fell off her face. Marcus's eyebrows flicked up, surprise passing into a smug curve. "Evening," I said, voice flat. "Wow," Marcus said, leaning back like this was funny. "Small city." Lila pulled her hand away from his. "Cal." "Save it," I said, eyes on Marcus. "I'm talking." He lifted his cup, took a slow sip. "You must be Calvin. I've heard very little." "Cute," I said. "Lila, stand up." Her jaw clenched. "We're having a conversation." "You were," I said, still calm. "Now you're going to come with me. Private lounge. 2 minutes." Marcus set his cup down. "You don't get to bark orders here, man. Maybe try asking your wife like a human." I turned to him, steady. "In a second, you'll be a background problem again. Don't test the timing." He smirked, but I saw the twitch in his cheek. Lila rose, trembling just enough to count. I stood, stepped aside, and let her pass me toward the frosted glass door marked Members. I followed. Inside, the lounge was quiet. Leather chairs, a long walnut table, boards inlaid with mother of pearl. The city buzzed below like distant static. I closed the door. She crossed her arms, trying to look defiant, looking cornered instead. "Take a breath," I said. "Then answer me." "Answer what?" "Why the dress?" "It's just a dress," she shot back. "You're making it into—" "It's not just a dress," I said. "It's the one he asked for. You agreed. Why?" She looked at the floor, then at me. "I wanted to see how it felt. To feel young again, okay?" "You wanted to feel wanted," I said. "By him. That's not fair." "It's accurate." She flinched. "We were only talking." "You were curating a reunion," I said. "With wardrobe." She swallowed. "I haven't done anything." "You're in the dress," I said. "That's something." Her eyes glossed. "I miss who I was before bills, routines, meal prep. He messaged me about old times and I got caught in it. That's the truth." "I'm not interested in your nostalgia," I said, cutting clean. "I'm interested in loyalty." "Call." "Look at me," I said. She did. "You chose a costume for a man who isn't your husband. You planned a night with him. You dressed to be touched. That is betrayal. You don't have to sleep with someone to cheat." She pressed her lips together and nodded, barely. I know." "Good," I said. "Now you're going to walk back out there, pick up your purse, and you will leave. You will not speak to him. You will not send a look. You'll go home. You will not change. You will wait for me. You will make coffee. You will sit with your choices until I arrive." She stared at me like a person standing on a thin ledge. "And if I don't?" "Then this marriage ends tonight," I said. "No fireworks, no second act. Done." She blinked hard. "I'm scared." "Then move," I said. She took a step, stopped. "Will you tell me what you're going to do?" "No," I said. "Because you don't need to know." Her shoulders dropped. She reached for the handle. "Lila," I said. She froze. "What?" "Pull your hair back," I said. "You dressed for him. Go home in it." A tear finally slid, quick and angry. She wiped it with the heel of her hand, gathered her hair, twisted it into a loose tie, and opened the door. I followed her out. Marcus sat forward now, elbows on the table, like he was about to deliver a punchline. Lila didn't look at him. She lifted her purse, placed a 10 for the espresso she hadn't finished, and walked past. "Leaving so soon?" Marcus said, smiling at her shoulder. I didn't let her answer. I spoke for the table. "She's done here," I said. "Oh, sit tight." Lila kept moving, heels landing sharp on the tile. She hit the stairs without a backward glance and disappeared into the dark. Lila didn't say a word on the walk back to the main floor. She kept glancing toward Marcus like she wanted to explain herself, but my face made it clear. No room for excuses. I pushed open the cafe's heavy rooftop door, the warm evening air rushing in. The chatter from the other tables felt far away. "Go home," I told her quietly, so only she could hear. She blinked. "What?" "You heard me. Leave now. Don't say goodbye to him. Don't change your clothes. Don't stop anywhere. You'll be waiting at the kitchen table when I get home. Coffee hot, black." "1 cup." Her lip trembled, but I didn't soften. "Calvin!" I cut her off. "And Lila, if you don't follow that exactly, we're done. Understand?" She swallowed, gave the smallest nod, and stepped toward the stairwell. I didn't look back as she descended. I couldn't, not with the heat still burning in my chest. Marcus was exactly where I'd left him, leaning back in his chair with that smug little smirk, one arm draped casually over the backrest. His espresso cup was empty now, but he spun the saucer slowly like he was playing with a pawn before the first move. "Trouble in paradise?" he asked, voice low, dripping with mock concern. I didn't answer. I just slid into the chair across from him, resting my elbows on the table. His eyes lit up like he thought he'd won something. "You've got nerve showing up here," he said. "You're lucky I'm not the type to—" "Spare me," I cut in. My voice was calm, almost casual. "You'll get your turn." He raised an eyebrow but didn't push it. I could see him recalculating, a chess player realizing the board wasn't what he thought. I leaned back, scanning the street below through the balcony rail. The city hummed, cars inching through traffic, neon signs flickering to life. It was the kind of scene I'd always liked, noise and motion hiding every deal, every secret. "You think you know my wife," I said finally, turning back to him. "You don't, and you have no idea what you've walked into." His smirk wavered, just for a second. "Enjoy your coffee," I told him, standing. "I'll be back in a minute." And I left him there, letting the unease settle in, letting him wonder exactly what kind of game he'd just sat down to play. The real opening was still ahead. I didn't sit right away. I stood over Marcus until he finally leaned back and gestured to the chair like he was doing me a favor. I took it slow, pulled the chair in, and folded my hands on the table. "You think you know what's going on here," I said. "I've got a decent idea," he replied, still wearing that lazy grin. I shook my head. "Number. You've got scraps. I'm going to give you the whole picture, and then you're going to make a decision." He tilted his head. "This ought to be good." "I know where you live," I said evenly. "Top floor of that converted mill in South Boston. I know your building's fire escapes are rusted through. I know your landlord is 6 months behind on his taxes." The grin stayed, but his eyes sharpened. "I know your sister had a baby last month," I continued. "Little girl, 4 weeks early but healthy. Cute kid. I know your mother's in a rehab clinic in Albany, the kind that costs more than your press gigs ever paid. I know your ex-fiancé in Portland still hates you enough to talk to anyone who asks." He set his cup down. "What's your point?" "My point is I can reach anyone you care about," I said. "Not to hurt them, unless you force my hand, but to make your life very, very small." "That a threat?" "It's a choice," I corrected. "If Lila contacts you tonight, calls, texts, anything, she's yours." I walk away. "But if she doesn't, you disappear from her life forever. No messages, no accidental run-ins, no mutual friends passing along hellos. You vanish." He laughed, but it was thin. "You think you can dictate that?" "I don't think," I said. "I know, because I don't just have money. I have men who own people, not just businesses. And those people don't ask why they're being told to make someone leave town." He tapped the saucer twice, the sound sharp in the air. "You're bluffing." I leaned forward. "You've played enough chess to know the difference between a bluff and a forced mate. I'm giving you a chance to resign before you lose your queen." His jaw worked, just enough for me to see the crack in his confidence. "You talk like you're untouchable." I talk like I know the board, I said. And right now, you're 3 moves from losing everything that still matters to you. Your call. We stared at each other. The cafe noise faded, replaced by the tick of the nearby wall clock. He broke eye contact first, reaching for his cup again, just to have something in his hands. Enjoy the rest of your night, I said, standing. If you're smart, it'll be your last one in this city. I left him there, the smirk gone, staring into his coffee like maybe the bottom of the cup held a move he hadn't seen yet. I pulled into the driveway just after midnight. The house was dark except for the kitchen. Through the window, I saw her at the table, still in the dress, hair pulled back, hands wrapped around a mug she hadn't touched. When I stepped inside, the smell of coffee hit me. She looked up fast, eyes red and wet. "Cal!" "Don't," I said, dropping my keys on the counter. I poured a cup, took the seat across from her. "You're going to listen." She nodded once, silent. "I know everything, every message, every photo, every plan. I know about the cafe, the dress, the jokes you two passed back and forth. I know what you agreed to do tonight." Her face crumpled, but I didn't let her speak yet. "This isn't about whether you touched him," I said. "This is about what you were willing to do. Emotional betrayal is still betrayal." Her hands tightened around the mug. "I didn't—" "You didn't have to," I cut in. "You showed up for him. You dressed for him. That's enough." She shook her head hard. "It wasn't supposed to go that far. I don't know. I missed how I used to feel with him. I wanted to remember it for a night. I thought I could stop before it—" "You thought wrong," I said, my tone flat. "You let him pull you in because it was easy. You never asked yourself what it would cost." Tears slid down her cheeks. "I'm sorry. I swear nothing physical happened. I was stupid. I was selfish, but I wasn't—" "Faithful," I said. "You weren't." She covered her mouth like the word had weight she couldn't carry. "You've got 1 hour," I told her. "You stay here, you cut him out completely. No calls, no texts, no social media, no friends in common passing along messages. You keep this marriage, and you work to fix what you've broken, or you walk out that door tonight and we're done." Her lip trembled. "And if I choose to stay?" "Then you follow my rules from this point forward," I said. "No bending them, no excuses, no testing where the line is. You cross it, and I won't be having this conversation a second time." She set the mug down like her hands were too weak to hold it. "I don't want to leave you. I love you. I just—" "Stop," I said, raising a hand. "Don't try to soften it with declarations. Love without loyalty is nothing." She nodded, crying quietly now. 1 hour, I repeated, standing. "Think carefully. This is the only time I'll give you the choice." I walked out of the kitchen and into my office, shutting the door behind me. Her muffled sobs bled through the walls, mixed with the faint clink of the coffee spoon against porcelain. The clock on my desk read 12:14. At 1:14, I'd have my answer. At 1:14, I walked back into the kitchen. She was still there, dress wrinkled, makeup streaked, coffee cold. Her eyes found mine, and I knew her decision before she spoke. "I'm staying," she said, voice raw. "If you'll have me, I'll do whatever it takes." I sat down across from her. "This isn't forgiveness. This is a contract. Trust isn't coming back overnight, and you don't get to ask when it will." "I understand. You'll earn it," I said, "or you'll lose it permanently." She reached for my hand, but I didn't give it yet. "Say it clearly," I told her. "I'll never see him again. I'll never speak to him again. I want you. Only you." I studied her face, searching for any trace of hesitation. There wasn't. Finally, I gave her my hand. "Good. Then we start there." We didn't talk about Marcus again that night. Instead, I took her upstairs, and we closed the distance in every way but one. The wall in my head stayed up, solid and deliberate. By morning, I had work to do. While she was in the shower, I drafted the post-marriage agreement. Everything in plain language, no legalese. Any contact with Marcus or any other man in a similar context, physical or emotional, meant immediate divorce, forfeiture of joint assets, and a payout to me from her inheritance. I left no loopholes. When she came down in her robe, I slid it across the table with a pen. "Read it. Sign it if you mean what you said last night." She scanned it, eyes widening at a few points, but she didn't argue. She signed, dated, and pushed it back to me without a word. That part handled, I made a different call. My Prague contact patched me through to a man in Boston who owed me 3 favors. "You know Marcus Rowe?" I asked. "Journalist. Lives in a converted mill. Yeah. I want him unsettled, harmless, but shaken. Make him think the board's bigger than he thought. 2 days later, word got back that Marcus had come home to find his beloved dogs gone, both kennels open. They were returned the next morning, unharmed, collars polished, a new leash on each one. No note. The message landed. Within a week, his social media was quiet. Within a month, he'd sublet his apartment and vanished from Boston. No forwarding address, no mutual friends talking about him. Lila never asked why, and I didn't tell her. Some games don't need a public checkmate. Sometimes it's enough when your opponent knows you can end it whenever you want. Months later, the house felt different. Quieter, not hollow, focused. Lila moved slower now, one hand resting on the small curve under her sweater as she passed the kitchen island, humming while she chopped fruit. "Decaf?" I asked, holding up the tin. She wrinkled her nose. "You trying to start a fight?" I poured her tea instead and kissed her forehead. The ultrasound photo was still clipped to the fridge, a blurry promise with a due date scrawled in the corner. We didn't say hope out loud. We didn't tempt fate. We just followed the plan. Her voice broke the quiet. "Are you okay?" "I'm working," I said. It wasn't a dodge. I had a list taped inside my head, and every box needed a check. By afternoon, my lawyer slid a folder across my office desk. New trusts finalized. Properties moved out of our names and into shells 3 layers deep. A clean education fund cobbled to a youth chess outreach foundation in Delaware that never hosted an event but filed pristine paperwork. Reputation, Teflon, income, boring. Anyone digging would find a modest coach who volunteered on weekends and bought groceries with coupons. I walked the house that night, checking locks and cameras. The new alarm raced on a closed loop. No cloud, no vendor logins. Our router lived in a steel cabinet with its own battery. Mail went to a box 3 towns over. Our real address pointed to a florist on Beacon. It wasn't paranoia, it was structure. Lila sat cross-legged on the rug, sorting baby clothes a neighbor had dropped off. She looked up when I came back in. "You're still here?" she said quietly. I said I would be. Her eyes glossed, not with fear, with gratitude edged by caution. She had earned this life back one day at a time. Appointments made, passwords shared, locations left on, phone habits public. She never asked how the money worked anymore. She asked what time I wanted dinner. She kept the boundaries like they were holy. We built new rituals, Sunday omelets, Wednesday night walks around the block, Saturday mornings at the community center, where I taught kids to castle instead of burn bridges. She came sometimes, sat in back with a notebook, tapping her pen against her knee. When a father asked if I took private students, I smiled and said my schedule was full. I kept it that way. Marcus lingered the way a bad move does after you've hit the clock. Not visible, but there. I still check certain feeds once a week. A dead-end sublet in South Boston. A freelance byline out of Toronto. A tagged photo in an airport bar, then nothing. If he ever drifted back, he'd find a city with fewer doors than before. One night, rain hit the windows hard. Lila shifted beside me in bed, whispered, "She's going to have your eyes." "She's going to have a locked life," I said. Safe, simple. Her hand found mine in the dark. I won't make another mistake. I know. And I did. Knowing didn't mean I stopped watching. Downstairs, the study held a travel board I kept for teaching. 32 wooden pieces, 2 clocks, a single clean position. I sat there sometimes after she fell asleep, keeping my hands busy so my head wouldn't spin new threats out of shadows. That night, I set up a simple endgame, king and rook versus king, and played it out square by square. No heroics, no risk. Just pressure, geometry, inevitability. When the final mate was there, I didn't say anything clever. I set the king down, closed the board, and killed the clock.